can use the machine once I have it. The problem is getting it.
And that may decide whether the S7 fits you at all, which is the question reviewers and owners still don't seem to agree on all that much. So you might have seen something in the montage we'll get to, but we tested the reach, the 200-pound limit, and the noise, and whether these 4 stock grips actually matter. Then we added our own $149 perfect grip to the mix. See if they fix the S7's biggest problem, or just give you a fancier way to row. Before we get to the fit problem, here's why the S7 is worth talking about. It's a compact, chest-supported row that runs around $370 with the entire loaded trolley traveling along 2 guide rods.
We've trained on it with stock handle and our aftermarket grips, from lighter sets all the way up to 205 pounds of plates.
When it fits the person using it, the actual rowing movement is genuinely pretty good.
If you're new here, we're a husband and wife team, so on most of our reviews, you're getting 2 completely different perspectives. And if you've ever wondered how a piece of equipment would actually work for someone else in your house, not just you, that's the gap we're trying to bridge. And sometimes we pick on each other while we're doing it. Subscribe if any of that sounds like something you'd like.
So most people treat fit like a pure height question, and it's not. Height is only a rough shortcut. You got arm length, torso positioning, and the pad setting, determining whether you can reach the handles at the bottom and whether you run out of rail up here at the top.
I'm 5'5". By height alone, I should be fine. But reaching the starting position has been my biggest problem with this machine.
And I'm 5'11", but I can use nearly all of the available rail travel at the other end. So taller doesn't automatically mean better fit.
So somehow this machine made both of us the wrong size.
Just in opposite directions.
Very on brand for us.
So actually, hold on, 'cause that's not quite right. Let me be straight about mine, because it's not really a fit issue the way Perrin's is. At this point, we've watched pretty much every piece of content out there on this unit, and there's one thing that genuinely surprised us. Because as far as we can tell, nobody's mentioned it. Mikolo's own listing says the 24.17 inches of travel allows for, quote, full range stretch and peak contraction, accommodating users of all heights. But if you actually row to true peak contraction, you hit the trolley mechanism at the top. And that's not a height thing, that's anyone.
So it's not that you're too tall for it.
So no, anyone who's rowing to a full honest contraction is going to hit that same point. Now for comparison, Megamass handles this way differently. Their trolley is H-shaped, and the top of the H cradles the chest pad, with longer handles coming down from that upper section, and the weight is mounted lower on the unit separately. That design just avoids the contact point entirely. Now, we're talking about 2 completely different price points here. Megamass runs something like 6 to 7 times what this costs, and with value-priced equipment, you're always making trades somewhere. That's not the surprising part. Surprising part is that this specific trade-off never came up anywhere in any review that we've watched. That's why a claim like it works for everyone over 5'4" isn't very useful. 2 people at the same height can have completely different experiences, but fitting through the actual rev is only half the question. You still have to get the weight started, and this is where the S7 gets a bit awkward.
So with no weight, I can reach it. Once it's loaded and resting at the bottom, however, that's where it becomes the problem. Just grabbing it to bring it up.
So one workaround is putting a block under the trolley to hold it higher. Technically it works, but now you're lifting a loaded trolley with one hand bent over as you're trying to position a block with the other.
So the workaround needs its own workaround.
The hack works perfectly if you have someone here to reset the block for you.
Well, just Call your wife.
I tried that once, and she's in the other room watching. Call the midwife.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you picked the wrong emergency
I
then.
mean, apparently, that day ranks below British childbirth. A foot operated start mechanism would solve this properly. But now you're adding cost and complexity. And it would also fix the S7's biggest usability issue. Now, people have asked for a thicker chest pad because heavy loads can dig in on this, but this is a comfort issue. It's not a reach issue. Making it thicker, though, would actually work against the fit problem we just showed you, because more cushion will push you further away from the handle. What this needs is denser foam, not more foam, something that holds up under load without adding distance. So Mikolo rates this at 200 pounds. That's the plate capacity. But the number on the label isn't what you actually feel pulling on the handle. We tested the trolley system at 24.5 pounds felt weight, added a 25-pound plate, tested it with a crane scale. This is a straight one-to-one system. You should feel roughly 50 pounds total, but it measured 44 consistently, top to bottom of the rep. The total weight on the system didn't change, but because of the angle of the rail, what you actually feel pulling on it is only about 85% of the loaded weight total.
So, sure, 25 pounds obviously isn't going to move anything, but what about when you actually loaded it up to 205 pounds?
At that load, the frame stayed planted, the trolley tracked straight, and we didn't feel any binding through the entire rep. It's a center loaded design and it held that way through the entire test. So we measured the main frame at 1.78 millimeters, which is around 14 to 15 gauge steel. The handles were much heavier, 3.25 to 3.5, which is in that 9 to 10 gauge range.
So, thin frame, thick handles.
Budget grade frame material, yes. But the geometry matters. This is a triangulated structure with the load spread across two guide rods. One gauge number is not going to tell you how the whole machine behaves. So there's already some sway in the handle apparatus itself. Nothing to worry about, but it's the real sign of where the weak point is going to show up if you're going to be loading heavier over time. So nothing bent, shifted, or felt unstable at 205 pounds. The area I'd watch over time is this handle attachment because every hard start sends another jolt through that same point. That's a long-term concern, not a failure we observed. So also, flat edge plates are annoying to strip off when the horn is full. Not an S7 design failure, it's just one of those small things you notice after you've been using it. So this machine is loud enough that it comes up in nearly every review or comment section. So we tested the ambient volume of this room, which is as silent as it possibly can be, normal. And we run 39 to 41 decibels in here as a base.
And our loudest reading was 85 decibels.
Here's the weird part. The loudest set was not the heaviest set.
It sounds like something's wrong.
Sounds dramatic, which is different.
You would know dramatic.
Here, I like dramatic stuff. But here's what surprised us. We expected noise to climb with load, and it didn't. It generally came down as the weight increased, and the likely explanation is the heavier weight naturally slowed our reps down. The slower reps are quieter regardless of load, and we didn't clock the actual rep speed with a stopwatch. But the pattern was consistent enough across 6 loads that speed, not weight, looks like the real driver of noise on this machine, which makes sense when you consider it's sitting on linear bearings like Smith machines.
So that puts it roughly around the vacuum cleaner to heavy traffic territory on our chart. It's not quiet, but we didn't find increasing noise, binding, or slop as the load went up. So it's a real annoyance. It's just not evidence that this machine itself is falling apart.
So, not that she's particularly good with a vacuum or traffic either. So Mikolo gives you 4 stock grip positions that change your wrist position and encourage different elbow paths through the row.
A wider, more flared row will actually bias the upper back. A tucked row gives you more shoulder extension and may feel more lat focused. And an underhand position also brings more biceps into it.
But for 99% of us, this does not turn the S7 into four completely different pack machines. Find a grip that feels best on your wrists and your shoulders, gives you a full range of motion, and lets you train hardest with clean reps. Use that most of the time. When you want some variation, use another grip for a while. The stock knurling is pretty passive. And honestly, I would mostly use just two positions, the high vertical grip and the wide horizontal grip. Other two are options, but they would not drive my buying decision for this.
So we tested 4 grips for you to use the 2 that you were already using.
This is called peak efficiency.
Okay, that's actually called being stuck in your ways. But to be honest, I am just picking on him because I gravitate almost exclusively to the top vertical grip every time.
So, which, if you were just paying attention to what just happened right there, that is a self evident one trick pony. Okay, the four grips are useful, but they still do not address the biggest complaint we showed at the beginning, and that is where these come in. So these are the perfect grips from Style Fitness. We paid $149 for the pair imported from Japan. They arrived in about 2 weeks. They can rotate freely, or you can lock them into 16 fixed positions. I personally leave them free because they let my hands find their own angle through the rep. And they're not locked into one spot on the machine either. They can mount on any of the four stock handle positions. So if you're worried about losing whatever muscle bias you get from the wide grip versus the tuck grip we talked about earlier, you don't lose that. You're not choosing between the perfect grips and your grip variety. You get to play with both.
So 16 lockable positions, and you refuse to lock them.
Freedom isn't free, Perrin, and this freedom cost me $149.
But the biggest difference is not the rotation.
So the perfect grips raise the usable starting point by roughly 3 inches. And remember that reach problem we showed you at the start? This is one real fix for it. Before these, we were doing the same thing every reviewer does, literally standing on triangle wedges to get enough height to reach over. Since we put these on, we haven't needed them even once.
With the stock handle, this is the same fight we showed you at the start. With the perfect grips, however, I've got zero issue reaching it. Like none.
Okay, so you don't magically become Harry Potter without your wand and go Leviosa, and they lift, and they do not change the rails. They do not increase the weight limit. And they do not change the resistance curve. And they're not going to unlock some secret section of your back you were never going to reach before. What they do is give you a better wrist freedom, more placement options, and on this machine, a higher and easier starting position. So, full disclosure, we reached out about an affiliate relationship with these, never heard back. No deal, no relationship, nothing. Crickets. We paid for them ourselves. So here's the perfect grip verdict on its own. They make the S7 more comfortable and substantially easier to reach. They improve the machine. They do not rescue a machine that would otherwise be unusable. The S7 already works without them for the right body. At $149, I do recommend them, not because they give you 16 different ways to hold a row, but for a machine like this, they solve a real specific problem.
And for me, that's not a small upgrade. That's the difference between fighting the machine and actually using it.
And honestly, I'll never use this machine without the perfect grips attached to it ever again. Now, before the final verdict, one more thing worth knowing is what it's actually like to own one of these. A few quick things you only notice from actually living with it. It's compact, like people say, but it's still a footprint. We have to actively move ours in and out of the way in both the Swole sofa and here in the Swole studio. It rolls fine on the casters, even loaded, though I wouldn't recommend that because the plates will fall off when you tip it. Pad adjustment is a simple pop pin, fast, no tools. Loading and stripping plates is normal aside from the flat edge annoyance that we had already mentioned earlier in the video.
So judged entirely on its own, the S7 is a smooth, stable, and useful budget row. The movement is genuinely good and the capacity is enough for most home gym buyers. The catch is the fixed starting position. If it fits your proportions, it's a good buy. If you have to fight just to begin every set, it probably isn't.
So it fits Jeff at Stump.
Mostly.
And it fits me after another $149.
Which is why the whole thumbnail is essentially a question.
At my height, the reach problem is real. The perfect grips improve it, but shorter buyers still shouldn't trust a height chart alone.
And separately, the perfect grips make the machine more comfortable and easier to reach. They are a genuine upgrade. They are not a requirement. So, this is a good budget row. Give it an adjustable start, a denser pad foam, and a few small refinements, and it could become a very good one.